For those of you who don't know me, I'm Malia Nobrega Oliveira, and I'm tuning in from my Oneha now here in Hanapepe Valley, Kauai. And on behalf of UH Manoa Hawaiʻi Nui Akea, the School of Hawaiian Knowledge, we love partnering with Kanaio Kana, the Kula Hawaii Network, and being able to bring this kind of cultural programming and discussions about things that are going on in our community, for our lahui, and just ways that we can get civically engaged and really looking at our futures for our next generations to come and for our current generation as well. So I'm gonna invite my friends here. I'm gonna unmute them and give them a few, some moments to do a ho'olauna. Tell us, you know, where you're tuning in from. And yeah, we just want to hear a little bit of your mo'olelo. So go ahead, Kamana.
Okay, no leila aloha mai kākou. O wau o Kamana mai kalani Beamer, no Hawaiʻi waiau. E no wau ma ka piko, o ko kākou ʻāina, ko kākou honua I loko koʻu manao, ma Waimea, ma puʻukapu, Hawaiʻi. And haʻilelo ana wau, pili ana ko kākou hana koʻikoʻi, pili ana ka ʻāina aloha futures. Ka maupopo iaʻu he o ia wale no o wau he kaua no ka ʻāina, no ka aloha ʻāina, no ka ʻāina aloha no hoʻi. Aloha. I'm Kamana Beamer, so I'm jumping in from you know, what I consider to be one of the centers of our universe, Waimea, Pu'ukapu Waimea. And yeah, really happy to be here. I'm a associate professor, split between School of Hawaiian Knowledge and the William S. Richardson School of Law. I teach at Kamakakuakalani Center for Hawaiian Studies and in the law school in Richardson. Yeah, so really happy to be here today. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna ask to Lanakila, can you try and unmute? Oh, there we go. Aloha.
Aloha. Ano me ke aloha nui au ko o wau o Joshua Lanakila o ka ʻāina I ka pono Mangauil. E kalamai no ka makani. I'm noho au ma honoka'a ma ka moku o ke ave. Let's see. For me, I am ʻāina na wale no. Just been one that was born and raised in the small town of Honoka'a on Hawaii Island. I'm a graduate of Kanoa ʻāina, which was one of the very first Native Hawaiian public charter school. I'm one of the early classes. Graduated in 2004. Shortly after, moved into becoming a Hawaiian studies teacher, and I was head of Hawaiian studies for Honoka'a elementary and intermediate, and then that grew into high school as well. For about 10 years, I was there, and then with the Department of Education Hawaiian studies Kupuna Makua program, and so a lot of my my kickstart was working with our keiki, and I'm very blessed for that. A lot of time on the ʻāina. I kind of grew up in Waipio Valley, working with the kupuna there, Hanamaka ʻāina. And since then, just kind of growing to help to maintain the foundation of Hawaii, of culture, especially Lamea Hawaii in my small rural community of Hamakua. Since then, I've actually been part of a number of different things that kind of grew. I was worked as a activity specialist and cultural advisor for our youth center in town for about 11 years or so as well. And more recently, actually opened up, being led by the kahea and the request by our own community in Hamakua to have a kind of a piko, a place to come together for cultural learning. And so in 2015 or 16, we opened up our Hawaiian Cultural Center of Hamakua, which I currently continue as a director, and just help to bring Ike Hawaii to everyone who would like to learn. We have programs that share far and wide, and as a holds a kuleana to be a community hub to have all kinds of discussions and sharings and learning. We've done it for many years, and of course, back in 2014, being inspired by my kumu and our local community. To have to engage to protect our wahipana. We became very involved with the protection of our sacred mauna ua kea, and continues that, and just being an advocate for our community, and definitely a strong advocate for the health of our āina, and just kind of stepped in and helped to spark the conversation that eventually evolved into this group of wonderful people inspired to do something pono for our Hawaii in the midst of these hard and challenging times. And it's an honor to be able to help to create the foundation and the base for a conversation for a better future for Hawaii with this ʻāina aloha document. Mahalo. Aloha.
Hi, mahalo nui. You know, we have audience joining us usually of all ages, from our keiki all the way up to our kupuna, and again from our different picos here in Hawaii and beyond. You know, and as I continue to see Ohana joining us from Eugene, Oregon, and Utah, and so many places, can you I'm going to ask a quick question of our audience. Can you put a 1 in the chat if you've seen this ʻāina aloha declaration? And are you familiar with it? Put a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with this, just so we can get a sense. And put a 2 in the chat if you're just like, I don't know, that's why I'm here today. I want to learn more. So I see 1. So I think, yeah, people are still wanting to learn a little more. There's a few that are saying 1 now. Yes, they're a little familiar, and you know, they just want to continue to learn more. So my ka'i, so maybe one of you can start to just tell us, introduce what is the purpose of this ʻāina aloha economic futures declaration.
Sure, I can. Maybe I can start, Lanakila, and you can jump in. Yeah. So Lanakila's right. You know, this really started just with some phone calls and conversations, and Lanakila and Davis Price had reached out to me, and Keone Lee, and then we, you know, started to bring in more people. And I think what we had kind of identified was, you know, we're at a pivotal point, really, in the history of our world, and certainly in the history of our islands. You know, the extreme crisis and confusion and, you know, eha that this COVID situation has created in our homes, in our families, economically, our school systems, you know, everything has kind of been revolutionized and all at once. And so we also recognized, you know, that in the midst of all those challenges, there are some positive things, you know, that was happening, you know, on the ʻāina itself. It's really the first time, at least in my lifetime, I've seen all across Hawaii, you know, a break in, you know, tourism and kind of business as usual. Certainly, you know, my mom's side of the family is from Kauai, so I remember Iniki, and we had a pause in tourism for a while there, but nothing that's been this scale across all islands. And so I think we all got together and said, you know, the goal for us isn't to restart the old system that was clearly not working for the vast majority of our people, and certainly almost all of our ʻāina. And so we wanted to band together and create an effort that, you know, could build a broader coalition on the values of our kupuna, to really think about reforming and building a new economy. And so if you go to the website, āinaalohafutures.com, you can kind of get a sense for what we're trying to do. So we identified a 4-step process, and our first step was to create the declaration. We've moved on from there, and we're on step 2 now, where we're collectively drafting an action agenda, huli'au action agenda. And we really want people to, log into our site and offer their mana'o on this action agenda, because that will be closed May 31st. And then we'll be moving on to step 3 in the process, which, we're going to convene working groups. And the idea is to uplift the innovation and brilliance of our community to create this new economy. And so we'll be having working groups where we can put out ideas and proposals to create this new economic system. And then when that stage is pau, we'll have a document with a broad coalition. And at that point, the powers that be, and certainly we believe the power is in the people, and that's why we're doing this, but we don't have any budget. There's no giant organization sponsoring this. There's no billionaires or millionaires behind it. It's just our blood, sweat, and tears. But we will move this agenda forward for the sake of our islands and each other. I can add more, but I'm going to let Lanakila jump in, and maybe I can talk more about the circular economy stuff after.
Hi. I would say that just to give, for me, the most important part of this is that the intention here is to include the voices of the local community, of the people of Hawaii. It kind of was the general conversation, I think, kind of began when noticing some of more the government's endeavors to try and start the conversations and create the platforms for economic recovery, and just kind of recognizing that it began to kind of reflect a lot of the same kind of foundations and organizations and type of business models kind of seeing being brought together at this table, and excluding many things, or not being present a lot of things that we feel, and for a lot of our community we've been having to fight for, whether it be protection of our natural resources, the rights of Native Hawaiian people here, the rights of nature, and really not a representation of the people. So I think that's for me one of the greatest things that this is intended to do. I know I was kind of seeing a lot of people are looking at just looking for answers, and really it's that this declaration isn't meant to be putting out a preset or intended idea. We've just set the conversation. So even in these first stages, it is just we've kind of started the conversations, and we welcome the community to engage, to participate, so we can get the wider perspectives of so many. I mean, it's an honor to be able to work side by side with many who helped to put this document together. I think we represent already, we've been within the original conversation or drafters of this document, quite a wide berth of our local Hawaiian community. Myself, I'm from a small community town, and as elementary teacher, I'm in between working on the farm. Even right now, I'm on my way. Got to go back into the mala after this. But and then we have wonderful scholars and business owners, and there's just a wide berth, and that's what we want to see continue the conversation here. But I think also important to note is that this document is grounded in the mana'o and the ike of our kupuna, the ike of this ʻāina, particularly for these tropical islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that is piha, that is so rich and full with an existing culture and an existing ecosystem, that there's a lot of templates that have been left for us on how to live in balance and in pono with this place. And I think part of why we are engaging is that we've recognized that a lot of the system even prior to COVID was degrading many aspects of Hawaii, the very health of these islands to be able to sustain a population, and that opens up for a lot of economic disadvantages and stuff, especially for our local communities, and that's for everyone that lives in Hawaii. But also trying to be sure that that voice also is not left out. The voice of and the representation and of the Hawaiian, not just the Hawaiian people, but just the Hawaiian culture is also the mana'o and the ike and the guidance of the Hawaiian ecology, the very breath and movement of this environment. So we've set the platform. In a sense, we've just, in some cases, maybe we're not fighting to get on someone else's table. We've established our own table. We've established a place where everyone can come to, where others may, it's held up in the upper echelon of a select few, and this is meant to open up for everybody in our community. And so if you look through the declaration, a number of the stuff some people might say is not strong enough into a particular avenue, but that is because it is rooted in Hawaiian ike Hawaii, but we are looking on how to take care of all of Hawaii. And that is everybody who calls this place home, and our extended ohana. It represents every aspect of our environment. Mai kalani, kanu'o kamauna, kamoana. So and everyone within that. So eia no ke kahua.
Ai, mahalo. He kahua pa'ano. I am seeing a question here about even the name of the declaration. We're so ma'atu hearing aloha āina, but here it's referring to it as the āina aloha futures declaration. Can one of you maybe tell our audience why the choice of saying it that way?
Sure, you like take that one, Lanakila, or I can, but I think you were.
I guess I can.
Yeah.
Offer mana'o. I think by even changing that, or not changing, but offering that perspective, āina aloha. I actually had a talk story with a few other. One I was talking also with Amy Kalili, who's also one of the authors of this document, and just kind of to kind of shoot mana'o back and forth about what is even the expanded mana'o beyond this. We can look at the literal translation as just the land that we love, or the this place that our aloha is, but even like to makavalu that, to go into depth of what that is, and kind of from myself personally, my kumo's always taught me you have your literal translation, your figurative kind of mana'o, and then you got to make your personal connection to that. And for me, we say aloha āina. It's a directive. We're kind of we're reminding ourselves, and we are telling each other love that land. And now we're kind of at a point where hopefully we've all established that we do. This is our land. This is the place that we aloha. This is the place that we have connection to, that we have to have that reciprocation, which what aloha is. Alohe alo mekaha. Face to face with this environment, with our land that we are on right now, and our ha, that exchange in order to perpetuate and sustain life. So this āina is that. This is the place that we live, that nurtures us, that protects us. And so now it shouldn't be having to remind us or remind ourselves even too that we have to aloha the āina, but now we know that this is the spot, so let's do our best to make sure that we include in our decision makings for our economy, that is paramount. I think that's one of the most important things that when you look at this document, for me, the most empowering aspect of this is putting the health of āina and the local community as the priorities, kind of restructuring. I think for myself too, in my mana'o, the economy was something that that humans created, supposed to help to kako'o our societies. Not that our societies are supposed to serve the economy. So that whole mana'o, that we sacrifice the health of āina, and we sacrifice the health of community to see economic growth. You gotta huli that baka. Put the health of ʻāina and the health of community as the priority that now the economy was meant to serve and to malama. So recognizing that this is the ʻāina is that which we must connect with and we must sustain with aloha. Oh yeah. Cool manapo. Manapo bali.
Yeah, no, Mike, I think that's, I totally agree with Lanakila. And collectively, you know, I think that's kind of what who we landed on was, you know, we're all familiar with aloha ʻāina, and it's always, in some ways, I think it's almost interchangeable. But I think in this instance, coming out of COVID, we wanted to highlight the ʻāina. You know, we need an economic system that values the ʻāina and the future of each of us, and like Lanakila is saying, our local community. So I think that's kind of how we landed on that. And you know, Lanakila's right. We're a diverse, you know, the 14 people that drafted this, we come from all different sectors. I mean, some of us are entrepreneurs, some are educators, all different levels of, you know, educators, and you know, some of us work in the tourist industry. But the thing that unites us, right, is our ʻāina aloha, you know, is our sacred, beloved homeland. And we recognize that, you know, what we can do today, the best thing we can do today is to improve that ʻāina, right? To restore some of that abundance for, you know, things we won't even see for ourselves, but, you know, for the next generation. And I think another part of this opportunity is, you know, globally, Hawaii has an opportunity right now. I mean, this is a tremendous crisis, and it's been frightening. You know, I mean, we've had people sick, people have passed away in our communities, and that part is terrible. But also, you know, coming out of this crisis, you know, and we have this chance to rethink, you know, what do we really want to see, and we want to infuse global best practices for the economy. You know, we were on this phase where almost seemed like an unstoppable machine, you know. Hey, 8 million tourists, 9 million tourists. Whoa, we go 10 million. You know, I just keep building and building and building. And you heard it all across our islands. People say, whoa, enough already. You know, roads too busy, beaches too full, cannot fish. And so we want to, you know, link this economy with these global efforts. There's this thing called a circular economy. It's very big in Europe. The EU is sponsoring it. In fact, the EU just came out with a kind of a recovery plan that focuses on circular economies. And the idea is, you know, the old system pre-COVID, it really was a linear economy. And you think about it, all of our products, you know, it's about extracting resources, right? You take them, get the natural resources from one place. So it's make, take, waste. And what do you do when you pull out the resources? Hey, you might pollute the environment, right? And then, okay, you get your natural resources, you build your product, whatever it is, your flat screen TV, you pay labor, probably the least amount as possible, and the company makes its profit, right? And okay, good, I get my flat screen TV in my home, and then it becomes waste and rubbish. 2 years later, I got to go buy a new one. And that philosophy, that model, they call a linear economy, make, take, waste. And you can see, you know, you times that by 100 million for all the products we have in our world, and it's brought our planet to the brink of collapse with climate change. And so, you know, the circular economy is like, okay, what about how does life exist, you know, on our planet for literally, you know, tens of thousands, millions of years, natural systems and cycles, when the natural world is full of this. Everything is one circle, right? When seed sprouts, turns into a tree, the leaves fall, go back down, become soil. Our bodies right here, you know, I'm living, talking right now, but 150 years from now, hopefully I'm feeding some beautiful soil, right? With my body and my bones. And so we got to restructure, you know, Europe, they're thinking about their entire economic system. How do you restructure it to become more circular? And the goal is, we like jobs. You know, we want more jobs in Hawaii. We want, you know, meaningful work. We want livable wages. We want gender equality and balance, right? But we also don't want to degrade our environment. We don't want to be in these conversations where, hey, if you like jobs, you got to go, you know, destroy one sacred place. You got to go build more hotels. You got to share all this stuff with millions of people that make any kind. No, we can have other opportunities for our future. And so we want to link our efforts to this global movement towards circular economies. And if you go on our website, ʻāina Aloha Futures, you can kind of learn more about that.
Mahalo. And our Kanayo Kana team did put the link for the declaration in our Zoom chat as well as on our Facebook. So again, that's āinaalohafutures.com, and you can go and see how you can learn more about what's in this declaration. And then, like they shared earlier, they're in a phase now where they're wanting engagement and getting your mana'o on different parts of the declaration and what can be done. Yeah, you know, we do have a Q&A session here as well as in the chat on Facebook. You're welcome to place any mana'o or questions there. And there is one mana'o here, and maybe one of you may have a response to it. Shane is saying, the declaration, there's no mention of the return of Hawaiian ʻāina to Hawaiian hands in the declaration. Supporters of TMT are listed as a part of this hui. Just a few of the things I noticed. Any mana'o about that comment?
Sure, I can share some, and then Lanakila, if you want to jump on. So there, part of this effort was to build this broad coalition around a set of values. You know, Shane is right. We've accepted people to sign on, and we haven't excluded anyone that believes in these sets of values. And you know, alongside, we have adamant, you know, protectors of the Mauna that are listed, and drafters of this declaration that have really sacrificed, in some instances, our professional careers, you know, our families for this movement. So in no way, you know, could we say that, you know, this is like stepping away from those issues. But this is kind of, again, trying to, how do we create a new economic future that takes care of our place? And I think some of that is, you know, we have to find areas that we can build this broad coalition and work together. And that's just on the declaration. I think if you, Shane, if you look at the action agenda, you'll see more specific issues and ideas that are coming out. The idea of the declaration was, you know, to create this broad base. But I think things become more specific in the action agenda and as we move forth. And of course, we all know justice for the ʻāina is justice for Kanaka. I mean, you know, ilike me ko kamakau olelo, you know, kapa ia he ʻāina makanohana ke Kanaka. So, you know, the two is connected. Yeah, and we will move forward and try to address those issues. But to build this broad coalition, we got to try to do things maybe in ways that at least I haven't been before. And I go beyond, some of it is uncomfortable, right? I mean, like, oh man, how is this gonna work? You know, but we got to try. So.
Mahalo.
I kako that, you know, it's when we're talking about economic futures, the care of ʻāina, the protection of ʻāina, and trying to help our communities, our whole community. Trust, you know. If anything, when you look at like the mana'o of the Mauna, you know, everybody's no question where I stand. But at the same time, you know, even though I see others who may not agree on that situation, if they agree to these values, then there's a conversation to be had with everybody. You know, I'm not one that likes to polarize our community or because of any one mana or every one thought. You know, if someone chooses or might support this that I don't agree on, that doesn't mean I completely throw relationship and try to exclude and cut them out. That's not exactly pono either. We have to continue the conversations. But if they stand with these values, you can kind of be quoted. Some people say, whoa, get some interesting bedfellows in there. It's like, yeah, you would never think. But in the end, you know, COVID the virus doesn't care where you stand on particular issues. So in this case right now, we're having to set back, and we have to look at how do we move forward and care for everyone in Hawaii. And the big principles here is putting the health of ʻāina as a priority. So when it comes to TMT, that's definitely going to be part of the conversation. And for those who sign on to this document, they're going to have to compare and contrast their agreement with this declaration, and then projects such as TMT. But that is one of many different issues that we have been dealing with in Hawaii. And so I think we have to be willing to continue to kuka, continue to converse, continue to papa if we need to. But I don't think we're not going to get very far if we turn ourselves off from having those conversations, and it will be uncomfortable. But that's part of, for me, my dedication to see the health of ʻāina and health of community is to have those hard conversations, even with those that I may not agree with. But we will find those points that we do agree upon, and other than that, we gotta continue to work together as much as we can and not draw more divisions. Divisions, I think, is what got us here, and. Yeah, so ho'omau, and I would say don't abandon the table. Don't walk away from the conversation just because you don't like one part of it. As part of community engagement, share your mana'o. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I really like that, Lanakila. I totally support. It's really solid. And if we think about the last 30 years, I mean, aloha ʻāina. I remember being a young boy, being with Uncle Calvin Ho and my grandmother and Uncle Calvin Ho, from, Hakipu'u, Waiahole, Oahu side, talking about importance of water and food, and food sovereignty and bringing back our food systems. And, so the reality is our community has been advocating, on issues of food and justice for a long time. I think what we tried to do with this, creating this declaration and broad basis, the thing about COVID is, it made everything real for people's everyday experience. The things Uncle Calvin was talking about for the last 30 years, became real and for everyone. And in our homes, you see more people planning food and thinking about our local food system. Some of these conversations started with Lanakila saying, "Hey, man, we need one slaughterhouse that really operates. How do we support our local food producers across our islands?" And so I think, like Lanakila is saying, we're going to have contentious issues where we might not have eye-to-eye agreement, and that's okay. We know where we stand, and we're going to move on those things. But the issues that ʻāina aloha overlaps with, food security, food sovereignty, more local jobs, like how do we stir those conversations up and make them happen today? And so I think that's another opportunity really that we have with COVID, is our local food and local jobs. So
yeah, I really appreciate that, because again, something that's coming out of COVID, I think, is that so many of us, if we didn't have a mala before, many of us have started a mala. And, a recent post that I did on my own personal Facebook page was that I'm looking at seeds so differently. Like we had a pumpkin and squash with some pork the other night as a part of our ʻāina ahi ahi. And, I felt bad throwing away seeds, and I was just like, I saved some of them and I started to dry them out, and I'm just like, hey gang, like any advice on what to do and how to save seeds? Because I'm not ma'a to that, and so many of us didn't grow up doing those kinds of practices. Like my grandparents had a mala, but I don't know, I just showed up to help clean up, I didn't do a lot of the collecting seeds, saving seeds, planting seeds, and so now I'm just like, I feel bad like throwing out seeds because I'm just like, oh, this can be me'ai for so many more people, you know? I mean, even to see, like, I have a bell pepper plant that's about 7 or 8 inches high right now because I took it from an actual bell pepper. I mean, you know, this is just so crazy that at my age, I'm like thinking through this right now. And as, you know, as I'm thinking of being a makua and planning for that, it's like, I want my keiki to grow up having this ike and this pilina with ʻāina. And I think those are some of these kinds of, I think, solutions and things and innovative and, you know, again, connecting back to our ike kupuna of ways that we really should be committed to living today. And, you know, I'm going to just read another comment here. I thought was really interesting by Justin. And Justin comes back all the time to our Lei Ānuenue shows. But I like this comment because, yeah, and I'll just read it out. Justin says, started to talk about this with my cuz. One of our ideas was make it a raffle to limit the amount of visitors coming into the islands. This would make it a privilege to see Hawaiʻi. I don't know, anyone, you guys have on that?
Yeah, I think that's the kind of creative conversations we got to be having. And I think that this, this process allows, right, for this community input. And we've had, I like that, Justin, other places in the world actually have put a cap on tourism, other islands, and said, look, this is the number we're going to accept. And, and that has allowed, in some instances, they, charge more to get there. So it still generates economic revenue. But yeah, we gotta think about that. Another person sent me one proposal, said, hey, we should cap the number of rental cars, and maybe you cap rental cars and, tourists have to go, they have to travel on sort of tour buses and stuff. So we limit the amount that's on the road, local people running the tour buses. So we're telling the proper stories for our places and how to access and enter. If I think I was really inspired, the people on Kauai, I went back to KA over on La Ku'uko'a last year. And to be honest, it was like, I never seen anything, KA was so overrun. And it was kind of hard. It was kind of hurtful, at one point, because so many cars and opala, people making any kind. And I went back on La Ku'uko'a last year after, it kind of reopened. And I understand it's very sensitive. Some people never like them reopen at all. But I was also inspired that the place had recovered. And, you could only, for the tourists, they couldn't park there, right? You need one local ID. You get, local uncles driving the buses, telling the stories. I think some of the Waipa'a Foundation, Mehana Vaughn and others were involved in this. And, maybe it's a model like that, that we get in more places. So I really like that. Thank you, Justin.
Living on islands, I would say like our culture is kind of rooted in the idea, we va'a people. As canoe people, you understand, he va'a, he moku, he moku, he va'a. The canoe is an island. The island is a canoe, and you have to malama that what you have on that canoe, because what you got is what you got. And in order to gather more, it really takes care, and also how to share that evenly amongst everyone on the va'a, so everyone is cared for, because really everybody on the canoe is essential. It's not really self-centric, because if you just thinking about your own belly and you're gonna eat everything up, you wouldn't just take all that away from somebody else. And when that storm hit and you and eat all the food and the steersman never get his stuff, he's gonna be weak and then you get in trouble. And you got to take care of the canoe itself. You cannot if you lack in caring for that va'a and everything, she falls apart on you dead in the water. Same as on an island, it's the same thing. And then same as this, it is the same on a continent. It is the same on this planet. This is the planet is finite. We can run out of resources if we do not malama, if we don't take care. So in that, there's a lot of different principles in our own culture right now, where we have to also ourselves, I say, sometimes we also limit ourselves when we speak of our own culture. And that's where for a lot of people coming from an outside perspective or such, they just think like, oh, they're just trying to go back to the grass shacks. Oh, they're just trying to, and that's how we're treated. And sometimes we kind of cut ourselves short in thinking just on that level as well. At the same time, we all like big house, we all like our electronics and everything too. And so we don't want to sound hypocritical in that too. But we're talking about is being able to assert, you know, the foundational ideas and thoughts of care for environment. So, to be very innovative and really take our technologies to another level. And when we hear about pono practices, that we lift them up. We don't allow greed in a lot of times to get in front of those things. If we hear that easy, small little example. Okay, so we know that the extraction of, every time we build more buildings and stuff and use that concrete, out of sight, out of mind, we might think, oh, we're getting bigger. That's somebody's mountain, someplace is getting wiped out. Now you tell me that you can create and build, with a different form of crete, like a hempcrete, for example, something that you can regrow, and it's actually has a lot of benefits in that way. Hey, that makes sense. Now we don't have to destroy the mountain in order to continue our building. Right on. So how can we shift and support that? Continuing to chop down whole swaths of forest can be replaced with using different types of material. Okay, locals, we love our paper plates, because we go luau everything. Well, you see like those reusable plates, like the palm fronds. Hey, we know we get palm fronds dropping everywhere. We can totally replace that, and now there's just innovative ideas and such that we can continue to support and kako these things. And so even when you're looking at things such as controlling the number of tourists coming in, some people will just say, oh, well, that's you might hear the breaking or infringing on rights conversation or something, but what about the rights and the real practice of sustaining a place, and so that more people in the future will be able to care for or be able to experience, because too heavy just degrades the Hawaiʻi, the land itself. So it's really about, that's foundational principles of our kupuna, even for when we live here. Just because you local, or even just because we Hawaiian, doesn't mean we get full rights of access for as much as we want, wherever we like, however we like. I don't know what culture you're talking about, but you look back to our culture, we had limitations. Yeah, can't just go wherever you like and go take from anybody's own backyard. Yeah? And if you take basic principles, that which we need to take or we need to gather, we also need to have that ha'abiaku. What are you giving? Our fishermen did not just go to the ocean to fish. They also went down there to go feed. They hanai. Yeah. We don't just spray the chemical fertilizer just to get our plants to grow, or we don't just feed our crop. We make sure that whole ʻāina is momona. The whole the ecology. We don't steal all the water from the river to feed our crop. We use what we can, and there's ways that our kupuna did it that is actually, I think, rivals the sense of kalamai, even lawnmower over here. There's a lot of ike and tactics and practices that our kupuna did before that was able to produce so much and sustain a massive population and not deplete the resource, but actually feed into the resource. So I think that's kind of a principle of the circular economy too, is how do you make all these aspects of which we need to gather in order to sustain stuff, how do we make it the symbiotic? What are we giving back to sustain that? There's ways that we can better the tourism model so that the visitors coming in are not just extracting, and that we actually work ways that that which they bring in actually works to help take care of Hawaii, because right now it's pretty much a one-way thing. So we got to get that circle. Yeah.
Yeah, mahalo. And I was taking a quick look in the action agenda part of it, and I'm bringing that up on our screen right now. One of the first things that caught my eye, especially because of my concerns around climate change, and so many of us are looking at that, and and looking to our Ike Kupuna. And I mean, right away, I saw, you know, this commitment to using creativity and innovation to decrease our carbon footprint. And then the mention of, you know, using telemedicine. I mean, so many of our kauka today are doing that and are being forced to do it, and know that it is a little uncomfortable, but they're doing it, and people are getting the needs that they need at this very time. And I think that was really exciting. And then I see the next section as we're talking about tourism, you know, and I thought about Uncle Tommy Hashimoto, one of our kupuna that really was an alaka'i, a long time member of that KA community in ʻāina, that really led the way for so many of the ohana there. And I like some of the things that are mentioned in this action agenda that we're seeing here on the screen. And maybe I'll just, you know, read one here about envisioning a regenerative visitor industry that respects and gives back to the ʻāina, as you guys have already been saying, forming partnerships with the communities, you know, and we keep saying that, but I think it's so important that each of us really have these conversations with our ohana. Start with your ohana in that little community, and then start to have these larger conversations with your extended ohana, and moving to ahupua'a and to moku discussions as well, as a way to engage. And, you know, Lili Kala is saying here that in Rapa Nui, they are making modern buildings out of old soda cans and bottles. Hoi hoi loa. And that is how they are using recycling and, you know, restoring and reusing things. And so I like that, Mana'o, you shared too, Lanakila, about, you know, changing our ways of when we come together and having our luau and our pa'ina. But yeah, I don't know, any other Mana'o?
Yeah, I can, and mahalo for that, Lili Kala. On our website, we'll have sort of, you know, circular economy principles, even with construction. You know, you're really, you know, actually the construction industry as a whole, talk about the carbon footprint, the buildings and the building of buildings and the running of buildings is basically the largest emitter of CO2 into our world. So we really got to rethink our buildings and how we build. And we do have principles on using, using waste products from one industry, you know, to build for another. So that's a really good point. And I really want to, Lanakila's right, like stressing our, you know, our values and our ike kupuna, I think is really where it's at. You know, when our society was thriving and highly functioning, it was kind of this balance, right? Lili Kala, she's first one I ever heard talking about kalai āina, right? And if you guys know what a kalai āina was, you know, in the times of our ali'i, you know, there was a whole system of redistribution of wealth and resources, really. I mean, that's what it's about. When I think about it now, it is, you know, we have the original circular economy in many ways. So when our reigning mo'i passed away, you know, all bets were off, and the new mo'i had to go back and, you know, redistribute ahupua'a amongst the ali'i. But even setting up that ahupua'a system, why did we set that up? So people had access to diverse resources. We're redistributing wealth and resources in everything we do. And so we have to reinstitute those practices in our economy in Hawaii today. There's a reason why our kupuna, you know, they never made, hey, you be the head chief, you give everything to your son and daughter, and they just keep ruling forever and ever. And that's how we end up with the society that we have today, where we have people that are almost trillionaires now, partly because they've inherited so much wealth and reinvested, right? But it never gets redistributed. And so if we think about our kupuna's perspectives, right, kalai āina, hey, we redistribute wealth. And so, you know, I think those are the things we really gotta do here in Hawaii for the future to sustain our islands. And we need that balance of, you know, top down, but bottom up. You know, the ali'i, I'm sure they were brilliant, amazing people, but they did not know when the aweweo was spawning in every fish hole all across Hawaii. And the communities did, right? And the communities that were gathering and accessing and feeding, like Lanakila is saying, those resources on a daily basis. And they had input. they had input say, hey, no, this is when we go make kapu for this fish species in this area because that's when it spawns here. And that's the kind of, balance that we need in reorganizing our new economy and governance system and structure.
Mm-hmm.
I think on manao on that too, just to build on again, pulling on the ike kupuna, and in some ways just natural, getting back into the natural cycle of things. And one thing I've been doing a lot of in this past couple of weeks, I've been doing all this kalo and huli distribution. We've handed out about, partnering with huli kahonua and ʻāina momona hui. We've distributed somewhat of upwards of 5,000 huli to hundreds of families across Hawaiʻi Island, getting food to everybody. But I put out some little videos and some basic things, like when you farm or when you grow your kalo, and when you clean your kalo, you hem out the dead leaves and everything. What do you do with all that? What do you do with that byproduct? You put it back into the ground so that it feeds, it enriches that ground again, and it gets reinterned. So expanding that basic idea, that's actually how the world works. Like really, there's a whole nother realm of industry, of business, of jobs that is not being tapped. And there's so much focus on the production and the assembly, but what about the disassembly? Yeah, that without the disassembly side of the equation, that's when we just have that revolving, not revolve, what's the word? That one-way action of extracting the resources, creating the product, distributing the product is used, product is done, it goes into a landfill. Yeah. But if it was mandated, and maybe that's part of the thing, that here in Hawaii we actually have those types of industries where things that are created and made, they get disassembled, and all those bits and pieces, all those metals, all those plastics, all those different things, they have to go back into being the resource to build a lot of times even the same product, if they can reuse that. If not, in a small model, repurposing something it's a better step, but it still doesn't solve the whole problem. Because if you're still extracting, for example, the fossil fuel to create the plastic Coca-Cola bottle, and then you drink the Coca-Cola and then you throw it in the recycle bin, and then we're going to press all that recycle bin or press all that plastic and make a park bench. Right on. But at the other end, Coca-Cola is still extracting more oil. So it should be, we're going to wash that bottle, we're going to send it back to Coca-Cola, and you better use the same plastic to continue making your own bottle. That's circular now. Yeah, we have to take away from or start limiting the amount of extraction, especially those things such as these unrenewables that we don't have the ability to put that back into the ground. We don't. It takes about 10,000 years for that thing to break down and go back and becoming oil. So that's that full. As we create, we build, we deconstruct, we put it back in. Lessening our footprints in the development of our communities or stuff too. We have so much abandoned buildings and stuff like that too, but we still spreading out. You got to repurpose the place. Don't expand the footprint. Take down what's there, build something new. I know sometimes we get attached to these things, but sometimes if it's not serving the community, the function kind of pow, and you have to, you gotta change it up. You kind of just keep the same thing sometimes all the time. Just like in our mala, you cannot keep growing kalo in the exact same spot over and over and over and over and over again. You have to be able to allow that land to sit fallow so it can regenerate, or you got to change your crop. Yeah, or else you're going to deplete that the nutrients of that land, or you have some weird ways of putting in what you're losing. But just I guess in that mana'o there too, that's a whole nother level of industry and jobs that can be created, as well as increasing our Hawaii prides itself, and the tourism market takes advantage of promoting Hawaii, this isolated place, this unique ecosystem, and rare plants and animals and such like that. But yet that very industry that markets off of that does not really contribute back to that. There's also, and I think, some things that we can have the conversations of redirecting where the funds generated from these industries go. Some would argue that tourism, they pay a lot of taxes. Okay, but that tax money is not getting back to resolving the problems of which they're extracting. So the hotels down below, like here, west side, they take up a lot of water, lots of water they use up, and they pay their bill, and that goes into someone's pocket. Yeah, but is that doing anything to actually help the or the watershed up Mauka of it? Now that's where we could create a systems where existing hotels and really all communities, instead of all these funds and taxes and payments going off to a different sector to go be used for other things, that's another part of that synergy. You use water, your price for your water and the tax for the water or whatever has to go back into the system that gives you water. And there should be able to fund a whole nother department of jobs to maintain watersheds. It shouldn't just be a special project on the side. It has to really be taking care of these upland mountains. How are you going to have hotels down along the coast and you look up the mountains to barren land? Where's the forest? How are you replenishing that what you're using? I always said Department of Land and Natural Resources, what they should be doing is funding and providing jobs along the entire coastline to so that you have people out there that go out and feed the koa. They are paid by the state to make sure that the fish stock is healthy, that the reef is healthy, and you employ the people of their place, so that they go take care. That's their own backyard. Yeah, and there's ways like that where we actually really invest right back into the very resource that is being marketed. So that's that holistic, restorative, regenerative process that we can do. There you go. Mau a mau.
Mahalo. And we're coming towards the end of our show today, and as you guys are both speaking, I was looking at the elections website, and I'm seeing that the deadline to sign up for putting your name in for running for any one of our campaigns out there, whether it be for a city and county or state level, that June 2nd is that deadline, and when I think about the leadership that is in place today, I think what's exciting is that so many people are taking on that kuleana to maybe serve on a board, a commission, or even running for office. And I think that's really, I hope that maybe some of you are being inspired to put your name in and to serve our people in that form, in that kind of leadership role. And if you're not going to be running, if you can support one of our Hawaiians, look into their platform and how they're supporting things like this, like the ʻāina aloha values and the declaration, and coming from that kind of pa'a, kahua pa'a. So maybe in closing, Kamana, I'll start with you. Do you have any closing mana'o before I bring up my closing slides here?
Sure. So yeah, I think it's powerful. Plenty people all across Hawaii, aloha ʻāina running for office. I see it happening on Maui. I'm a supporter of Lanakila's ʻoha campaign, here for the Hawaii Island seat, and want to help him be successful. Again, we're in uncertain times, but if we rely on the values of our kupuna, we pull each other up instead of pushing each other down. Everybody get faults, but I trust, I trust aloha ʻāina leadership, and I want to do everything I can to see that rise. So, mahalo.
Mahalo.
Yeah, that's another part I think that we all need to be cognizant of. All these struggles that we've been facing. As much as it's uncomfortable, a lot of times politics and such too. We say, I don't want to get into politics. Well, politics are into you. It's into your life. It's into all of our lives. And I think it's been a hard thing even for myself to be able to engage in politics more. It is a constant headache, but at the same time too, one uncle told me, and I stand by it, is like the world ends up run by those who show up. And if we don't get out there and participate, then we're just going to constantly be trying to fight off or deal with everything that gets dumped on us. And so, myself, even I'm taking this up, feeling this call to step up, and I'm going to participate in the best way that I can, and help to bring this mana'o, bring these thoughts, inspire, and bring the voices of those that inspired me, and give that platform to encourage these continued dialogues and creative ideas for community. And that's what it takes too, is to get these creative mana'os and ideas. It comes down to basic things like being able to get leadership to support these things, to fund these things, to open up the doorways, to set the policies to protect these environments, to protect these systems, and or to block negative impacts and such too. So engaging this year, I know a lot of for so long we have been disenfranchised. We haven't just felt it, we have been disenfranchised. And I think a system that successfully disenfranchises the population to the point that the population no longer wants to engage, that's when the system wins. That's exactly what it wants. Because if you're not going to engage, then they're going to continue to do whatever they want. But I even that, I should stop saying like that, like polarizing, like, oh, there's them and then there's us. We are on the same ba'a. We're on the same canoe, and we're not agreeing on many things. And there's many things that we do agree upon when it comes to our government, and as it stands. And even for us as Kanaka Maoli, that government itself is a whole question, but and a challenge. But we cannot just go back to our own echo chambers. We cannot just go back to our own think tanks and think that things are going to change, continuing to have the same that roundabout conversations. We have to be able to be willing to reach across the aisle, to speak with those that we're uncomfortable with. And that, I think, is that really hard and uncomfortable work, but it's so necessary. When they say "Imuay na poki o inui kawai ava ava," it's bitter, it's hard. We became a nation, and we became a kingdom not even on the best terms. It was through warfare, it was through hardship. But our people have had to learn, and we've had to try to better ourselves in each situation. There's been many different things that have affected our community and the world community too. We're not alone in that, and that we have to, as much as we have to, that kulian to malama our own right here, our place, our community, our mokus, our pai āina. We also got to make sure that we are included in the conversation of this honua yakea on this great country that is the world as well. And what can we really give and offer? I guess for my closing, they always talk about Auntie Paki and her mana'o, that one day the world will look to Hawaii for aloha. Yeah, the tourism industry really marketed on that too. But I think that was only one very small aspect of aloha, the ho'okipa and that olu olu, but really aloha, alohe alo, and understanding the exchange. And aloha āina is a strong example. I just had this conversation this morning. What does that mean when we stand by aloha? And then, like, when we have to stand and have these hard conversations, we do so in kapu aloha. Well, that's our firm commitment to achieve pono. And so bringing that mana'o into the forefront and in these conversations to better not just our economy. Yeah, the focus shouldn't be the economy. The focus should be the health of āina, the health of the people, and making the economy do its job to make sure that that is the priority and those things are cared for. And that's putting us back into pono, I feel. So mahalo nui.
Ay, mahalo nui, Olua. We're really blessed to have both of you join us today here on Lei Ānuenue, and I feel like we had a really great, rich conversation, a lot of good mana'o that came up, and we encourage all of you to continue this discussion with your ohana, with your communities, and go on to their website or on our website, āinaalohafutures.com, and really go through the declaration and then look through the action agenda and engage, give mana'o, and come up with innovative ideas. And I think that's what's really exciting of how you can all participate, and even down to Kamaha'o, who is here on Kauai, one of our keiki participants that comes every time. And kamaha'o, even you can go on and participate there and tell mom to be a part of it as well in your ohana, the haumea ohana. So in closing here, as usual, we ask all of you to go on and let us know what you thought about today's discussion. We want to serve you better here on Lei Ānuenue, and you can go to kanaiokana.net/survey. It just takes a few minutes. And yeah, let us know if you learned something new, you liked it, if you know of any other practitioners or others that you would like us to invite to be a part of Lei Ānuenue and our webinar series. Yeah, please let us know there. As always, we have an amazing lineup for you throughout the week. Here's some of the photos that we used on our Kanaiokana site. You know, tomorrow I have a friend, indigenous sister. Her name is Tatiana Degay. She's from the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. And she's gonna be talking about her indigenous culture and their biodiversity and how they celebrate it there. And of course, some of the challenges that they also are faced with in Russia. Fridays, we also have our Aikole sessions. And, you know, as you can see, the Aikole sessions are hosted by my tita, Ekelakani Alpi Okroja, and these are all Maka'olelo Hawaiʻi. And tomorrow's session will be with Kuana Torres as well as Uluvehi Casamero. So that should be a really fun session. As I mentioned earlier, Native Hawaiian Student Services is hosting another session today at 11 in just a little while, as well as the Aloha Rising hosted by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Stay connected with us. Go follow us on both Kanaiokana and Hawaii Nui Akea's Facebook page, as well as our Instagram, and that's always the best way to stay connected with us. Come back and, you know, check our schedule, because then you'll be able to see what's coming up next. So again, mahalo to both Kamana as well as to Lanakila for joining us and sharing this ʻāina Aloha Futures Declaration, and really putting a kahea out to all of us and finding ways that we can give back to the ʻāina and how the ʻāina gives back to us. So aloha nui, ke aloha.
Aloha.